The night Lena Hale dropped the glass, she knew she had made a mistake. Not because it shattered on the floor, but because her husband didn't even flinch. He just watched her kneel to clean it up, while his family laughed softly and pretended not to notice the fear in her hands. They thought they had broken her. They thought she was alone. What they didn't know was that Lena had already made the call. And the woman about to walk through that door didn't cry, didn't beg, and didn't bend. She was trained to survive, and that's the version they were about to get from her. And by the time they realized the wife they were controlling wasn't the same woman anymore, it was already too late. Before we continue, can I ask you a quick question? Where in the world are you watching from? Drop it in the comments below. We love seeing how far these stories travel. And don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you're fully locked in. Because stories like this, the ones about silence, strength, and survival, deserve to be heard all the way to the end. Now, let's begin. The glass slipped from Lena Hale's fingers before she even realized her hand was shaking. It shattered against the floor, the sharp sound slicing through the quiet of the dining room like a warning shot. Conversations stopped. Forks hovered midair. Someone laughed awkwardly, then went silent. Grant Hale didn't flinch. He didn't even look down. Instead, he leaned back in his chair, folded his arms, and exhaled slowly, as if her mistake had inconvenienced him personally. "For God's sake, Lena," he said calmly. Too calmly. "It's just water. Why do you always make everything so difficult?" Lena froze. Her pulse thudded in her ears. She bent down immediately, fingers trembling as she reached for the broken glass. "I'm sorry," she said quickly. "I'll clean it up." "You'll cut yourself," Margaret Hale said from the head of the table, her voice smooth and sharp at the same time. "Stand up straight. Let the staff handle it. Honestly, it's like you were never taught how to sit at a table." A few guests exchanged looks. No one spoke. Lena stood, cheeks burning, hands curling together in front of her like a child being scolded. She felt Grant's eyes on her, assessing, weighing, deciding whether she'd embarrassed him enough already. "Sit," he said quietly. She sat. Dinner resumed as if nothing had happened. Lena focused on breathing. In. Out. Slow and silent. She had learned how to disappear without leaving the room. How to make herself small enough that no one noticed the way her chest felt too tight, or how her jaw ached from holding back words she wasn't allowed to say. Across the table, Grant was charming, relaxed, laughing with donors and investors, telling stories about projects he hadn't mentioned to her once. When he smiled like that, people leaned in. When he spoke, they listened. No one would ever guess what he was like when the doors were closed. Margaret watched Lena closely, her gaze sharp and calculating. When Lena shifted in her seat, Margaret leaned forward. "Posture," she murmured, just loud enough to hear. Lena straightened instantly. Grant didn't look at her. He lifted his glass instead. "To family," he said, "and knowing your place in it." Glasses clinked. Applause followed. Lena swallowed. By the time dinner ended, her head throbbed and her hands felt numb. She excused herself quietly and walked toward the restroom, counting her steps the way she always did. Steady. Careful. Don't draw attention. She locked the door behind her and leaned against the sink. Her reflection stared back at her, pale and unfamiliar. She touched the faint discoloration near her jaw, hidden carefully beneath makeup. It didn't hurt as much anymore. Pain had become background noise. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. She stiffened. One missed call. No name. Just a number she hadn't saved but could never forget. Her twin. Lena's throat tightened. She stared at the screen, heart pounding. She hadn't spoken to her sister in years. Not because she didn't want to, but because it was easier to pretend everything was fine than to explain how wrong everything had become. Another buzz. A text this time. "You okay?" Lena closed her eyes. She typed, erased, typed again. Her hands shook so badly she dropped the phone onto the counter. She picked it up, took a breath, and finally pressed call. It rang once. "Lena," Rhea said, her voice steady and alert. "What's going on?" Lena opened her mouth, but nothing came out. For a second, she thought she might pass out. Then the words broke loose, fragile and breathless. "I need you." There was no hesitation. Where are you? Lena gave the address. When she hung up, her legs felt weak. She splashed water on her face and practiced her expression in the mirror until it looked calm enough to survive the rest of the night. Grant didn't ask where she'd been when she returned. He barely acknowledged her existence as they drove home. The silence in the car was heavy, familiar, punishing. At the house, Grant handed his jacket to the maid and loosened his tie. "My mother wants you at her place tomorrow morning," he said. "Don't embarrass me." "I'll be there," Lena replied. He paused, glancing at her like he was deciding something. "You look tired." "I didn't sleep well." "That's not my problem." He walked away. Upstairs, Lena closed the bedroom door softly and slid down until she was sitting on the floor. Her breathing came shallow and fast. She pressed her forehead to her knees and waited for it to pass. By the time she heard the front door open again, hours later, she was still awake. Footsteps. Voices. Grant on the phone, laughing quietly in his office. A laugh she hadn't heard in months. Lena stayed where she was, frozen, until the sound stopped. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stared at the wall and wondered how long someone could live like this before they vanished completely. The knock on the front door came just after sunrise. Lena jolted awake, heart racing. For a moment, panic surged. Grant's mother didn't knock. Neither did Grant. She wrapped her robe tighter and moved downstairs. When she opened the door, she stopped breathing. Rhea stood on the porch with a duffel bag slung over one shoulder. Same face. Same eyes. But everything else was different. Where Lena's posture curved inward, Rhea stood solid and grounded, like she knew exactly where her feet belonged. Rhea's eyes swept over her sister in one quick, silent assessment. Then she stepped forward and pulled Lena into her arms. Lena broke. The sound that came out of her wasn't loud, but it was raw. Years of swallowed words, of fear and shame and careful obedience, collapsed all at once. She clutched Rhea's jacket like it was the only thing keeping her upright. "I'm here," Rhea said quietly. "I've got you." Lena pulled back, embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have." Rhea cupped her face gently and stilled her. Her gaze dropped to Lena's jaw. Then to her wrist, where the sleeve had slipped just enough. Rhea's jaw tightened. What did he do? Lena looked away. "It's not like that," she said automatically. I make mistakes." Rhea didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She just said, "Let me stay." Lena hesitated. Fear rose instantly, sharp and familiar. "If Grant finds out you're here." "He won't," Rhea said calmly. "Not yet." The front door clicked open behind them. Grant's voice echoed from the hallway. "Lena." Rhea didn't move. Lena's heart slammed against her ribs as footsteps approached. Grant stopped short when he saw them. For the first time in years, confusion crossed his face. "Who is that?" he asked. Lena swallowed hard. "That," she said quietly, "is my sister." Grant stared. And somewhere deep inside Lena, something fragile shifted. Grant's eyes moved slowly from Lena to Rhea, then back again, as if his brain needed time to catch up to what it was seeing. For a moment, no one spoke. The air in the hallway felt tight, stretched thin by surprise. "I didn't know you had a sister," Grant said finally. His tone was neutral, but there was something sharp beneath it, something calculating. Lena's fingers curled into the fabric of her robe. "You never asked." Rhea didn't look at Grant. She kept her attention on Lena, standing close enough that Lena could feel the steady warmth of her presence. It was grounding, like leaning against something solid after years of standing on unstable ground. Grant cleared his throat. "Well, this is unexpected." He glanced at his watch. "We're about to leave." "I know," Lena said. "Your mother's." Grant's gaze flicked to Rhea again. "And she is." "Rhea," Rhea said calmly. "Her twin." Grant gave a polite smile, the kind he used with strangers he hadn't decided how to treat yet. "You picked an interesting time to visit." Rhea met his eyes for the first time. Her stare was steady, unreadable. Family emergencies don't wait for convenient timing. Something in Grant's expression shifted, just slightly. He didn't like that answer, though he couldn't say why. Margaret's voice rang through the house before he could respond. "Grant, are you still standing there?" Grant turned toward the stairs. "We're coming." Margaret appeared at the top step, impeccably dressed as always, her posture rigid with expectation. Her eyes landed on Rhea, and she paused. "And who," she asked coolly, "is this?" Rhea didn't speak. Lena felt the familiar instinct rise in her chest, the urge to explain, to soften, to apologize for existing. She forced it down. "My sister," she said again. "She'll be staying a few days." Margaret's lips pressed together. Her gaze swept over Rhea, lingering on her stance, her expression, the quiet confidence that didn't bend or flutter. "I wasn't informed," Margaret said. Rhea tilted her head slightly. "I'm sorry. I didn't realize I needed permission." Lena's breath caught. Grant shot Rhea a warning look. "That's not what my mother meant." Margaret raised a hand. "It's fine." She studied Rhea for another long second, then turned her attention back to Lena. "Get dressed. We're already late." They left 10 minutes later. Rhea stayed behind. The door closed, and silence rushed in like a held breath finally released. Lena sagged against the wall. "That was a mistake." Rhea shook her head. "No. That was a test." "A test?" Lena laughed weakly. "They test me every day." Rhea's gaze softened. "Not like this." They moved into the kitchen. Morning light filtered through the tall windows, reflecting off polished counters Lena rarely touched anymore. Rhea set her bag down and leaned against the island, eyes scanning the room with quiet intent. "Show me," she said. "Show you what?" "How you live." Lena hesitated, then opened the fridge. Most shelves were bare. The good food was always reserved for dinners, for appearances. She pulled out a carton of milk, then stopped when she remembered. "It's fine," Rhea said gently, noticing her pause. "Go on." Lena poured 2 glasses. Her hands shook again, less violently this time, but enough to notice. Rhea took the glass but didn't drink. "Does he control the accounts?" Lena blinked. "How did you?" "You flinched when you reached for the fridge," Rhea said. "Like you were checking rules." Lena swallowed. "Yes." "Does he ever leave marks?" Lena looked away. That was answer enough. Rhea exhaled slowly, grounding herself. "Okay. We don't rush anything." Lena frowned. I'm not leaving yet." Panic surged. "You can't stay. If Margaret decides you're a problem." "She already has," Rhea said. "The difference is, she doesn't know what kind." Lena sank into a chair. "You don't understand how they work. They're patient. Strategic. They don't yell unless they're sure no one's watching." Rhea nodded. "That's fine. I don't need them to yell." A beat passed. "What are you planning?" Lena asked quietly. "Right now." Rhea said. "Nothing." Lena looked up sharply. "Nothing." "Observation," Rhea corrected. "I need to see the patterns. The pressure points." Lena shook her head. "You think you can outthink them. Everyone does it first." Rhea crouched in front of her sister, resting her forearms on her knees. "Lena, I've been trained to survive situations designed to break people. I'm not saying this to scare you. I'm saying this so you know you're not imagining things." Lena's eyes filled with tears. "I feel like I'm disappearing." Rhea's jaw tightened. "You're not." They sat there until the sound of the garage door opening echoed through the house. Grant and Margaret returned sooner than expected. Lena stiffened instantly. "Why are they back?" Rhea stood. "Stay here." Grant entered first, irritation etched across his face. "Plans changed," he said. His eyes landed on Rhea. "You're still here." "Yes," Rhea replied. Margaret followed, gaze sharp as ever. "I don't like surprises," she said. Rhea inclined her head slightly. "Neither do I." Grant frowned. "What exactly do you do, Rhea?" "I work in logistics," Rhea said truthfully, if not completely. "Interesting," Margaret murmured. "You seem very composed." Rhea smiled faintly. So do you. Margaret didn't return it. Grant glanced between them, unsettled by the unfamiliar dynamic. He turned to Lena. I need you upstairs. Now. Lena stood automatically. Rhea's hand closed gently around Lena's wrist. Grant noticed. His eyes narrowed. Is there a problem? No, Rhea said calmly. She was just sitting. Grant stepped closer, his presence looming the way it always did. Lena. Lena opened her mouth. Closed it. Rhea didn't move. For the first time, Grant hesitated. I'll be upstairs, he said finally, his tone tight. Don't take too long. When he was gone, Lena's legs gave out. Rhea caught her before she fell. I can't do this, Lena whispered. I really can't. Rhea helped her onto the couch. Then you won't. Lena looked up. What do you mean? I mean, Rhea said slowly, choosing her words, that sometimes the only way to survive is to step aside until you're strong enough to choose. Lena's heart raced. You're not suggesting. Not forever, Rhea said quickly. Just enough. Lena shook her head. They'll notice. You don't move like me. You don't. They see what they expect to see, Rhea said. They expect you to bend. Lena laughed weakly. And you won't. No, Rhea agreed. But I can pretend to. Footsteps sounded on the stairs. Grant called down, impatience creeping into his voice. Lena. Rhea squeezed her sister's hand. Go upstairs. Rest. Lena stood, heart pounding. Halfway up the stairs, she turned back. Rhea, she whispered. If this goes wrong. It won't, Rhea said softly. And if it does, I'll handle it. Lena disappeared into the bedroom. Rhea remained downstairs, alone in a house built on quiet control. She scanned the room once more, committing details to memory. The placement of doors. The cameras tucked into corners. The locks that weren't decorative. Grant thought he owned this space. He had no idea someone else was already mapping it. And somewhere upstairs, Lena lay curled on the bed, eyes open, wondering if the sister she'd called for help was about to step into the life she was too afraid to live. Grant didn't come to bed that night. Lena lay awake staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet stretch and contract around the house. Every sound felt amplified. The faint click of a door. The low hum of voices downstairs. At one point, she thought she heard laughter, soft, controlled, not meant for her. She turned onto her side and pulled the blanket up to her chin, the familiar mix of dread and resignation settling into her chest. This was how it always went. When Grant withdrew, it meant something was coming. Silence was never peace in this house. It was preparation. She didn't know when she fell asleep, only that she woke to sunlight creeping across the floor and a weightless, hollow feeling in her body, like something essential had already been taken from her. Downstairs, Rhea was awake. She moved through the kitchen quietly, barefoot, careful to match Lena's pace rather than her own instincts. Slower steps. Slight hesitation before opening drawers. A measured stillness that suggested uncertainty rather than confidence. The housemaid, Nora, stood at the counter folding linens. She glanced up, then did a double-take. "Good morning, Mrs. Hale," she said, though her tone held a question she didn't voice. "Good morning," Rhea replied softly. Nora studied her for a moment longer than usual. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep," Rhea said. Nora nodded, lowering her voice. "That happens." Something unspoken passed between them. Nora folded the last towel and stepped aside. "Breakfast?" "Just tea, thank you." Nora hesitated. "You sure?" Rhea gave a small smile. "Yes." As Nora turned away, Rhea noticed the woman glance back once more, her brow furrowed. It was the first crack. Small, almost invisible, but cracks always started that way. Margaret arrived mid-morning without warning. Her heels clicked sharply against the floor as she entered, gaze already searching for imperfections. Rhea was seated at the table, hands wrapped around her mug, posture slightly curved inward. Margaret paused. "You look different," she said. Rhea blinked slowly. "Different how?" Margaret narrowed her eyes. "Rested." Rhea inclined her head. I slept. Margaret didn't like that answer. She circled the table once, the way she always did when she felt something slipping beyond her grasp. Grant says you've been emotional lately, Margaret said lightly. That worries me. Rhea lowered her gaze, allowing just enough vulnerability to surface. I've had a lot on my mind. Margaret smiled, satisfied. That's what I thought. She reached out and adjusted the sleeve of Rhea's sweater without asking. We'll take care of it. The word hung heavy in the air. Grant entered moments later, jacket slung over his arm. He stopped short when he saw his mother. I thought you weren't coming by today. I decided I needed to, Margaret replied. Her eyes never left Rhea. I was concerned. Grant followed her gaze. What's wrong? Nothing, Rhea said quickly. I'm fine. Grant studied her. There it was again, that hesitation. That sense that something wasn't aligning with his expectations. You seem quieter than usual, he said. Rhea nodded. I'm trying not to cause problems. Grant relaxed slightly at that. Good. Margaret clasped her hands. We have a meeting this afternoon, she said. I'd like you there. Rhea's pulse quickened. What kind of meeting? Doctors, Margaret replied smoothly. Advisors. People who help families stay balanced. Grant didn't object. Lena, listening from the top of the stairs, felt her stomach drop. She stepped back into the bedroom before anyone could see her. Rhea felt it too. The subtle shift. The tightening of the net. I'll come, Rhea said. Margaret smiled, satisfied. The meeting took place in Margaret's private sitting room. Sunlight filtered through sheer curtains, the space deliberately calming. Two men in tailored suits sat opposite Margaret, files neatly stacked in front of them. Grant took a seat beside Rhea, close enough that his knee brushed hers. She didn't pull away. This is a routine evaluation, one of the men said, his voice smooth and rehearsed. Just to ensure everyone is supported. Rhea nodded, keeping her eyes down. They asked questions. Gentle ones at first. How had she been sleeping? Was she feeling overwhelmed? Did she ever feel confused or disconnected? Rhea answered carefully, threading the needle between truth and expectation. Enough uncertainty to fit their narrative. Not enough to confirm it. Margaret watched closely, making notes. At one point, Grant squeezed Rhea's hand under the table. The pressure wasn't affectionate. It was a reminder. When the meeting ended, Margaret stood and ushered the men out, thanking them warmly. When the door closed behind them, her demeanor shifted instantly. You're slipping, she said to Rhea. Rhea looked up. I'm trying. That's not enough, Margaret snapped. Grant has responsibilities. You cannot be a liability. Grant crossed his arms. You embarrassed me today. Rhea's breath caught, but she forced herself to stay still. I didn't mean to. Margaret stepped closer, her voice low and sharp. Meaning doesn't matter. Outcome does. Lena watched from the hallway, heart racing. She wanted to run. To scream. To make it stop. Instead, she did the one thing she hadn't done in years. She stepped forward. I'm tired, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I need to lie down. Grant turned sharply. We're not finished. Rhea felt it, the moment teetering on the edge. If Lena stayed, everything would unravel too soon. She's exhausted, Rhea said gently, stepping between them. Let her rest. Grant stared at her, stunned by the intervention. Margaret's eyes flashed. Excuse me. Rhea bowed her head slightly. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have spoken. The tension broke, just barely. Grant scoffed. Go upstairs, Lena. Lena didn't argue. She fled. That night, Rhea waited until the house was quiet before moving. She slipped into Grant's office, testing drawers, scanning shelves. Locked cabinets. Password-protected files. A wall safe tucked behind a framed photograph. She didn't open it yet. Not tonight. Instead, she photographed documents left carelessly on the desk. Financial statements. Account transfers. Notes written in Margaret's sharp handwriting. One line made her stomach turn. She must remain dependent. Rhea exhaled slowly. This wasn't control. This was strategy. Upstairs, Lena sat on the bed, knees pulled to her chest, listening to footsteps move below her. She felt like a ghost in her own life, watching someone else wear her face. When Rhea returned, she closed the door quietly and leaned against it, eyes closed. "They're planning something," she said softly. Lena's voice trembled. "What kind of something?" Rhea met her gaze. "The kind that doesn't end with you staying." Lena swallowed. "Then what do we do?" Rhea straightened, resolve settling into place. "We don't panic," she said. "We wait. We gather. And when they move, we make sure they can't undo it." Lena nodded, fear and hope tangled tightly in her chest. Downstairs, Grant lay awake, staring at the ceiling, unsettled by a feeling he couldn't name. Something in his house had changed. And for the first time, he wasn't sure he was the one in control. Grant's unease followed him into the morning like a shadow he couldn't shake. He dressed in silence, movements clipped, deliberate, as if precision alone might restore the sense of order he felt slipping away. When he reached for his phone, he paused, thumb hovering, then set it back down without checking the screen. Downstairs, Rhea moved carefully, matching Lena's habits. She set the table the way Lena always did, aligning the cutlery just so. When Grant entered, she didn't look up right away. "You're quiet," he said. Rhea nodded. "I'm listening." Grant frowned. That wasn't the response he expected. He poured coffee, watching her from the corner of his eye. She didn't flinch when he moved behind her. Didn't tense when he set his mug down a little too hard. "Mother's coming by later," he said. "She wants to review plans for the fundraiser." Rhea turned slowly. "What plans?" Grant's jaw tightened. "You don't need to worry about that." "I'm your wife," Rhea said softly. "I should understand what I'm walking into." Grant stared at her. For a moment, irritation flared. Then something else, uncertainty. "I'll explain later," he muttered, grabbing his jacket. "Don't be late." When he left, Rhea exhaled and allowed herself one long, steadying breath. Nora appeared in the doorway again, her expression cautious. "You're different," she said quietly. Rhea looked up. "Am I?" Nora hesitated. "You're here. More than before." Rhea considered her carefully. "Does that bother you?" Nora shook her head. "No. It just makes me wonder how long you've been holding your breath." Before Rhea could respond, Margaret's car pulled into the driveway. Margaret swept inside with purpose, eyes sharp as knives. She went straight to the sitting room and motioned for Rhea to follow. "Sit," she said. Rhea sat. Margaret opened a folder and slid it across the table. "These are preliminary documents. We're restructuring certain assets." Rhea glanced at the pages. Names. Dates. Legal language dense and deliberate. "I don't recognize some of these accounts," Rhea said. Margaret smiled thinly. "You don't need to." Rhea looked up. "They're in my name." Margaret's smile vanished. "You've been emotional," she said. "Unstable. It's best we limit your exposure to stress." Rhea kept her voice steady. "By removing my access?" "By protecting the family," Margaret snapped. She leaned forward. "Grant has indulged you long enough. This arrangement keeps everyone safe." "Safe from what?" Rhea asked. Margaret stood abruptly. "From embarrassment." Grant entered moments later, his timing too precise to be coincidence. He glanced at the documents, then at Rhea. "This is temporary," he said. "Until you're back to yourself." Rhea's pulse hammered, but she nodded. "Of course." Margaret relaxed slightly, victory assumed. Later that afternoon, Rhea waited until the house was empty. She returned to Grant's office, heart steady, mind sharp. The safe waited behind the photograph, exactly where she remembered. She studied it, testing combinations quietly. Birthdays. Anniversaries. A pause. Then a soft click. Inside were neatly organized folders, each labeled with careful precision. Financial records. Legal drafts. Medical correspondence. Rhea's breath slowed as she read. One document stopped her cold. Contingency plan, Spousal incapacity. Her fingers tightened. The language was clinical, detached, devastating. Evaluations arranged. Witnesses prepared. A timeline that mapped Lena's decline as if it were inevitable. Ria took photos quickly, methodically, documenting everything. Footsteps sounded in the hallway. She closed the safe just as the office door opened. Grant stood there, eyes narrowing. "What are you doing?" Ria turned, expression startled but calm. "Looking for the charger." Grant's gaze flicked to the desk, then back to her face. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "You've been asking questions," he said. "That worries me." Ria swallowed. "I just want to understand." Grant smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Understanding isn't your strength." That night, Lena couldn't stop pacing. "They're going to take everything," she whispered. "They always do." Ria placed the phone in her hands, pulling up the photos she'd taken. "They tried." Lena stared at the screen, color draining from her face. "They were planning to," her voice broke. "They were going to make me disappear." Ria nodded. "They still might." Lena collapsed onto the bed. "I can't fight them." "You don't have to," Ria said. "But you do need to decide." "Decide what?" "Whether you want to survive quietly," Ria said, "or live loudly." Lena covered her face, sobbing. "I don't know how to be loud." Ria sat beside her. "Then let me be loud for now." The door downstairs slammed. Grant's voice echoed through the house, sharp and irritated. "Lena." Ria stood. "Stay here." She met Grant in the hallway. His eyes were wild, unsettled. "Where were you this afternoon?" he demanded. Ria held his gaze. "Here." "I called," he snapped. "You didn't answer." "I was resting." Grant stepped closer, invading her space. "You're lying." Ria didn't move. "No." The silence stretched. For the first time, Grant didn't know what to do next. He stepped back abruptly, shaking his head. "You're acting strange. Mother was right." Ria nodded. "Maybe." Grant stormed off. Ria waited until his footsteps faded, then leaned against the wall, heart pounding. Upstairs, Lena watched the exchange through the banister, a mix of fear and something unfamiliar blooming in her chest. Hope. The fundraiser was 3 days away, and the house felt like it was holding its breath. Margaret took over the planning completely, turning the sitting room into a command center stacked with folders, guest lists, seating charts, and handwritten notes. Ria was summoned constantly, expected to listen, nod, comply. She did all three, but she also watched, memorized, and waited. "Smile more," Margaret said one afternoon, adjusting Ria's sleeve without permission. "You look severe." Ria lowered her eyes. "I'll try." Margaret exhaled sharply. "Grant needs stability right now. Investors don't like uncertainty." Grant stood by the window, phone pressed to his ear. "Yes, of course," he said smoothly. "Everything is under control." Ria noticed the tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers tapped too fast against the glass. He wasn't as calm as he pretended. Something was slipping, and he felt it. Later that evening, Lena sat curled on the bed, scrolling through messages she hadn't answered. Her parents. Old friends. People she hadn't seen since before her marriage swallowed her whole. "I don't exist anymore," she whispered. Ria sat on the floor across from her. "You do. They just benefit from pretending you don't." Lena looked up. "What if they win?" "They won't," Ria said. "But if they try, we'll make sure it's loud enough that they can't hide it." A knock at the door startled them both. Grant entered without waiting for permission. "We need to talk," he said. Lena stiffened. Ria stood. "I was speaking to my wife," Grant said sharply. Ria didn't move. "She's not well." Grant laughed without humor. "That's becoming obvious." He turned to Lena. "Mother thinks it would be best if you didn't attend the fundraiser." Lena's chest tightened. "It's your event." "It's my reputation," Grant corrected. "And right now, you're unpredictable." Ria stepped forward slightly. "She'll be there." Grant snapped his gaze to her. "Excuse me." She's your wife, Rhea said evenly. Hiding her will only raise questions. Grant stared at her, then smiled thinly. You're getting bold. Rhea met his smile with one of her own. I'm getting honest. For a moment, Grant looked like he might say something more. Instead, he turned and left. Lena sagged against the bed. You shouldn't have done that. Rhea crouched in front of her. They're already watching. We can't shrink anymore. That night, Rhea slipped out of the bedroom after Grant fell asleep. She moved through the house silently, following a path she'd mapped over the past few days. The study light was off, but moonlight filtered through the window, illuminating the desk just enough. She accessed the safe again. This time, she found something new. A signed agreement dated weeks earlier. A medical authorization granting Margaret the ability to make decisions on Lena's behalf under specific conditions. Rhea felt something cold settle in her chest. They were ready, she murmured. She photographed everything, then returned the papers exactly as she found them. As she closed the safe, her phone vibrated. Unknown number. She froze. The message was short. We need to talk. Rhea didn't reply. The next morning, Nora caught Rhea in the kitchen. You should be careful, Nora whispered. People are asking questions. Who? Rhea asked. Nora hesitated. A man came by yesterday. Didn't say who he was. Spoke to Mrs. Hale privately. Rhea's jaw tightened. What did he look like? Tall. Confident. Like he didn't belong to anyone. Rhea nodded slowly. Thank you. By afternoon, the man appeared again, this time openly. He introduced himself as Evan Ross. I'm a consultant, he said, offering a polite smile. Your mother-in-law asked me to observe. Observe what? Rhea asked. Household dynamics, Evan replied smoothly. Stress indicators. Behavioral patterns. Grant hovered nearby, watching closely. Evan's gaze lingered on Rhea. You're different than expected. Rhea tilted her head. How so? You hold eye contact, Evan said. Most people in your position don't. Grant shifted uncomfortably. Over the next day, Evan lingered. He asked questions. Watched reactions. Took notes. Rhea kept her responses neutral, careful not to reveal too much. But Evan wasn't stupid. That evening, he cornered Rhea near the staircase. You're not who they think you are, he said quietly. Rhea's pulse spiked. You should be careful with assumptions. Evan smiled faintly. So should you. He walked away before she could respond. Rhea found Lena immediately. We have a problem, she said. Lena's eyes widened. What kind? The kind that comes with a price tag. Lena hugged herself. I can't do this. Rhea knelt in front of her. You don't have to. But you do need to stay calm. Lena nodded, though fear flickered across her face. The night before the fundraiser, Grant paced the bedroom, phone pressed to his ear again. I need this to go smoothly, he said sharply. No surprises. He hung up and turned to Rhea. Don't embarrass me tomorrow. Rhea met his gaze. I won't. Grant studied her for a long moment. You used to be afraid of me. Rhea said nothing. Grant's eyes narrowed. What changed? Rhea lowered her gaze. I got tired. Grant scoffed. You'll break again. Rhea watched him leave, her expression unreadable. Downstairs, Evan stood near the window, phone in hand. He typed a message, then paused, glancing toward the stairs. The house was quiet. Too quiet. And everyone inside it knew something was about to crack. The morning of the fundraiser arrived wrapped in a kind of forced brightness, the sort that made everything look polished while hiding the cracks underneath. Lena woke before dawn, heart already racing. She sat on the edge of the bed, hands clenched together, staring at the carpet as if it might tell her what to do next. Every instinct told her to run, to disappear before the day could claim her. Rhea watched from the doorway, reading the signs without needing words. You don't have to go, Rhea said quietly. Lena shook her head. If I don't, they'll decide it means something. They already have, Rhea replied. What matters now is what you decide. Lena stood slowly, her legs unsteady. I don't feel real. Rhea stepped closer and placed a hand over Lena's heart. You are. Even if they tried to convince you otherwise. Downstairs, the house buzzed with preparation. Staff moved quickly. Florists delivered arrangements. Margaret oversaw everything with sharp efficiency, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade. Where is she? Margaret demanded when she saw Rhea alone in the hall. Getting ready, Rhea answered. Margaret's eyes flicked over her. You'll behave tonight. Rhea inclined her head. Of course. Grant appeared moments later, already in his suit, jaw tight, energy brittle. This has to be perfect, he said. No scenes. No emotions. Rhea met his gaze. Understood. Evan arrived shortly after, blending in easily among the staff and vendors. He watched Rhea closely, his expression unreadable. When he caught her alone near the back hallway, he spoke in a low voice. You're cutting it close. Rhea didn't look at him. With what? Your cover, Evan said. They're preparing to move tonight. Rhea's stomach tightened. Move how? Evan hesitated. There's a transport arranged. Quiet. Medical. Rhea's breath caught. For Lena. Evan nodded once. After the event. If anything goes wrong, they'll say it was necessary. Rhea turned to face him fully. Why are you telling me this? Evan's jaw flexed. Because I don't like how far this has gone. And yet, Rhea said evenly, you're still here. Evan looked away. I'm warning you. That's all I can do. Before she could respond, Margaret's voice echoed down the hall. Evan. He stepped back instantly, mask sliding into place. We'll talk later, he murmured, then walked away. Rhea found Lena minutes later, standing in front of the mirror, dressed and pale. They're planning to take you, Rhea said softly. Lena's reflection wavered. Tonight. Yes. Lena closed her eyes. Then I can't stay. Rhea nodded. I know. They moved quickly. Quietly. Rhea grabbed Lena's bag, pressing her phone into her hand. You leave before the event starts, Rhea said. Go somewhere public. Somewhere safe. What about you? Lena asked, panic creeping in. I'll stay, Rhea said. I'll keep them busy. Lena's voice shook. They'll hurt you. Rhea met her gaze, steady and calm. They won't get the chance. A knock sounded at the door. Grant's voice. We're leaving. Rhea squeezed Lena's hands. Go. Now. Lena slipped out through the back staircase while Rhea opened the bedroom door. Grant glanced inside. She ready? Yes, Rhea said smoothly. Bathroom. Grant frowned but didn't question it. We're already late. By the time they arrived at the venue, the ballroom was glowing. Chandeliers reflected off polished floors. Guests mingled, glasses raised, laughter filling the space. Margaret stood near the entrance, greeting donors with practiced warmth. Grant moved through the room like a man reclaiming his stage. Rhea stayed close, silent, observant. Evan hovered near the perimeter, eyes darting. Minutes passed. Then Margaret leaned in toward Rhea. Where is Lena? Rhea's pulse spiked. She's not feeling well. Margaret's smile froze. She knows how important tonight is. I do, Rhea said. Margaret's eyes sharpened. Then where is she? Before Rhea could answer, Evan stepped forward. We have a problem, he said quietly. Grant turned. What kind of problem? Evan hesitated, then spoke louder than intended. She's gone. The word cut through the room like a dropped glass. Margaret's face drained of color. What do you mean, gone? She left, Evan said. Before the event. Grant's chest tightened. That's not possible. Margaret grabbed Evan's arm. You were supposed to watch her. I did, Evan snapped, then caught himself. I tried. Grant's gaze swung to Rhea, suspicion blazing. What did you do? Rhea met his eyes calmly. I helped her breathe. Grant laughed sharply. You think this is a joke? Margaret's voice dropped to a hiss. Find her. Evan hesitated again, then shook his head. It's too late. Margaret stared at him. What did you say? Evan exhaled. She's already somewhere public. If we make a move now, it draws attention. Silence fell between them. Grant's hands clenched into fists. You let her run. Evan's gaze flicked to Rhea, something like regret flashing briefly across his face. Margaret straightened, her composure snapping back into place. Then we adapt. She turned to Rhea. You'll stay close tonight. Rhea nodded. Of course. Margaret smiled tightly. And afterward, we'll discuss consequences. Across the room, guests began taking their seats. The program was about to begin. Rhea felt the weight of the moment settle fully into her bones. Lena was free for now. But the real battle was just beginning. And Grant, standing beneath the chandeliers, had no idea that the woman beside him was no longer afraid, and that the night he thought would secure his power was about to unravel it completely. The ballroom lights dimmed slightly as the opening remarks began, drawing the guests' attention toward the stage. Grant straightened his jacket, his expression composed, confident, the face he wore when he believed he was untouchable. Rhea stood half a step behind him, silent. Margaret leaned toward her, her breath warm and controlled. Smile, she whispered. People are watching. Rhea did. The first speaker finished, applause rippling through the room. Grant stepped forward next, his voice smooth as he thanked donors and praised the community. The audience listened, rapt, exactly as he expected them to. Rhea watched the crowd instead of him. She saw Evan near the back, phone in hand, tension etched into his posture. She saw Margaret scanning faces, calculating exits. She saw board members leaning toward one another, whispering. Everything was aligned. Grant finished his speech to enthusiastic applause. He returned to his seat, satisfaction gleaming in his eyes. That, he murmured to Rhea, is how you maintain control. Rhea met his gaze. Is it? Before he could respond, a murmur swept through the room. Phones buzzed. Heads turned. Whispers grew louder. Grant frowned. What's going on? Margaret stiffened. Evan. Evan stepped forward, his face pale. There's a situation. Grant stood abruptly. Handle it. Evan swallowed. It's already public. A large screen at the side of the ballroom flickered to life. The room fell silent. Images appeared, documents, signatures, timelines, medical authorizations, financial transfers, emails carefully highlighted. Grant's name. Margaret's. Gasps rippled through the audience. Grant staggered back. Turn that off. The screen changed again. A recording played, Grant's voice, cold and dismissive. She's unstable. This is the only way. Margaret's composure cracked. This is fabricated. A calm voice cut through the chaos. It's not. All heads turned. Lena stood at the back of the room, flanked by two women who looked steady and alert. Her posture was different. Straighter. Grounded. Rhea felt something loosen in her chest. Lena walked forward slowly, every step deliberate. The crowd parted instinctively, whispers trailing behind her. Grant stared as if he were seeing a ghost. Lena, what is this? Lena stopped several feet away from him. The truth. Margaret stepped forward sharply. You're confused. You shouldn't be here. Lena met her gaze. You don't get to decide where I belong anymore. Grant reached for Lena's arm. Rhea moved instantly, stepping between them. Don't, Rhea said quietly. Grant froze. The silence was absolute. Evan spoke then, his voice shaking. The documents are real. I verified them myself. Margaret rounded on him. You were paid to protect this family. Evan looked down. I was paid to observe. And I saw enough. Grant's voice rose. You betrayed me. Evan didn't respond. Lena took a breath and stepped forward again. Her voice carried without strain. For a long time, she said, I believed silence kept people safe. I thought if I stayed quiet, things would improve. They didn't. Tears shimmered in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. I was told I was weak. That I needed to be managed. That my voice was dangerous. She looked around the room. I believed them. A woman near the front dabbed at her eyes. But I'm done believing lies. Grant shook his head wildly. This is manipulation. She's being influenced. Rhea turned to him. By truth. Margaret hissed, "You're destroying everything." Lena met her calmly. "You destroyed it the moment you decided I was disposable." Sirens wailed faintly outside. The doors at the back of the ballroom opened. Uniformed officers entered, their presence shifting the air instantly. Grant's confidence shattered. This is a misunderstanding. An officer stepped forward, holding a document. "Grant Hale, you are being detained pending investigation." Margaret recoiled. "You can't do this." Another officer addressed her. "Margaret Hale, you are also being detained." Grant's face drained of color. He turned desperately to Lena. Tell them this isn't what it looks like." Lena looked at him for a long moment. Then she shook her head. "I'm not protecting you anymore." The words landed heavier than any accusation. As Grant was escorted away, he twisted back, anger giving way to something raw and panicked. "You'll regret this." Rhea met his gaze steadily. "You already should." Margaret followed, her perfect composure in ruins. The room erupted into noise, voices overlapping, reporters pushing forward, cameras flashing. Rhea moved to Lena's side, close but not shielding her. A reporter called out, "Lena, what happens now?" Lena took a breath. "Now I go home," she said simply. "With my sister." Applause broke out, hesitant at first, then stronger, more certain. Not celebration. Recognition. As security guided guests out, the ballroom slowly emptied, leaving behind scattered programs and wilting flowers. Lena exhaled shakily. "Is it over?" Rhea squeezed her hand. "The hardest part is." They stepped outside into the cool night air. Sirens faded into the distance. Lena looked up at the sky, tears finally spilling over. "I was so scared." Rhea nodded. "I know." They stood there for a moment, letting the night settle around them. For the first time in years, Lena felt something unfamiliar but welcome settle in her chest. Relief. The night air felt unreal, like the world had tilted and refused to settle back into its old shape. Lena stood just outside the ballroom doors, arms wrapped around herself, watching as guests filtered past with stunned expressions, voices hushed and uncertain. Some avoided her eyes. Others offered small nods of respect, as if unsure what was appropriate in the aftermath of a truth they could no longer unsee. Rhea stayed close, not shielding her, not guiding her, just present. Solid. Police lights flashed across the polished stone outside the venue, red and blue washing over faces that only an hour earlier had been relaxed and confident. Grant and Margaret were gone now, taken through a side exit, their names already spreading in whispers that would soon become headlines. Lena's phone vibrated in her hand. She glanced down. "Mom." Her stomach twisted. She didn't answer. Another vibration. Then another. Rhea noticed. "You don't have to respond." Lena swallowed. "I know." They walked toward the car slowly. Each step felt like it belonged to someone else's life. When they reached the passenger door, Lena paused. "I don't know what happens next," she said quietly. Rhea met her gaze. "Neither do I. But you won't be alone." That was enough. They drove away from the venue in silence, the city lights blurring past the windows. Lena rested her forehead against the glass, watching reflections shift and dissolve. The house she'd lived in for years felt suddenly distant, unreal, like a place she'd once dreamed about and then woken from. Her phone buzzed again. "This time," she answered. "Lena," her mother's voice broke through the speaker, tight with panic. "What have you done?" Lena closed her eyes. "I told the truth." "You humiliated them," her mother said. "Do you have any idea what this will do to us?" Lena felt the familiar guilt rise, then stop. "No," she said softly. "What they did already did that." Her mother inhaled sharply. "We were trying to survive." "So was I," Lena replied. "And I almost didn't." Silence stretched. Her father's voice joined the call, quieter, heavier. Come home. We'll fix this. Lena opened her eyes and looked at the road ahead. I am home, she said, and ended the call. Her hand shook afterward. Rhea reached over and squeezed it gently, grounding her without words. They arrived at a small hotel on the edge of the city, discreet and quiet. Rhea checked them in under her own name. No questions were asked. Inside the room, Lena sat on the bed and stared at her hands. I don't feel victorious, she admitted. I feel empty. Rhea nodded. That's normal. You spent years holding yourself together. Now there's nothing holding you in place. Lena lay back, staring at the ceiling. What if I fall apart now? Then you fall apart, Rhea said. And then you rebuild. The next morning brought headlines. Grant Hale detained. Prominent family under investigation. Charity event erupts in scandal. Lena read them slowly, each word landing with a strange mix of validation and grief. This was real. It couldn't be undone. Her phone rang again. This time, it was Evan. She hesitated, then answered. They're asking questions, Evan said without preamble. A lot of them. Lena's chest tightened. About me. About everything, Evan replied. You did the right thing. Rhea raised an eyebrow at the phone. Lena exhaled. You knew. Yes, Evan admitted. I just waited too long to decide which side I was on. And now? Lena asked. Now I live with that, he said. But I'll testify. When the call ended, Lena sat quietly. They're going to fight, she said. Legally. Publicly. Every way they can. Rhea nodded. I know. Lena turned toward her. Are you ready for that? Rhea met her gaze steadily. Are you? Lena thought for a long moment. Then she nodded. Yes. The following days were a blur of statements, meetings, and quiet moments that hit harder than the noise. Lawyers explained timelines. Advocates reached out. Women she'd never met sent messages saying they'd recognized themselves in her story. One message stood out. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. Lena stared at it for a long time. She met with investigators twice, recounting events she'd tried to forget. Each time, she left exhausted but lighter, as if telling the truth drained poison she hadn't realized she was still carrying. At night, she dreamed restlessly, memories surfacing, reshaping, losing their power. One evening, as they sat together watching the city lights from the hotel window, Lena spoke softly. I thought strength meant endurance. Rhea nodded. A lot of people do. But it doesn't, Lena continued. It means choosing yourself. Rhea smiled faintly. That's harder. Lena turned toward her sister. You stayed when you could have walked away. Rhea shrugged. You would have done the same. Lena shook her head. I didn't. Yet, Rhea said. The investigation expanded quickly. Accounts were frozen. Properties scrutinized. The image Grant and Margaret had built began to fracture in public view. One afternoon, Lena received a message from Nora. I'm glad you're safe. We all saw more than you knew. Lena felt a lump rise in her throat. That night, she slept without nightmares for the first time in years. As weeks passed, the noise softened into a dull, constant hum. The world moved on, but Lena didn't rush to catch up. Healing, she learned, wasn't linear. Some days she felt strong. Others, she felt raw. Rhea never rushed her. One morning, Lena stood in front of the mirror, studying her reflection. The bruises were gone. The tension in her shoulders remained, but it was easing. She met her own eyes. I'm still here, she whispered. Rhea appeared behind her. You always were. Lena smiled, a real one this time. Outside, the city woke to another ordinary day. Inside, something extraordinary was taking shape. A life no longer built around fear. The first court hearing was scheduled quietly, without cameras or spectacle, but the tension surrounding it felt anything but small. Lena sat beside Rhea in the back of the room, fingers intertwined so tightly they ached. The courtroom smelled faintly of wood polish and paper, a sharp contrast to the lavish rooms where her silence had once been demanded. Grant was brought in through a side door. Lena didn't recognize him at first. The tailored confidence was gone, replaced by something restless and brittle. His suit hung a little looser, his posture less certain. When his eyes met hers, he froze. For a split second, something like regret flickered across his face. Then it vanished. He looked away. Margaret entered moments later, chin lifted, spine rigid, clinging to composure like armor. She didn't look at Lena at all. The hearing moved quickly. Formalities. Procedures. Language designed to strip emotion from events that had nearly destroyed a life. Lena listened, heart pounding, as evidence was referenced, documents she'd once feared even thinking about. Her existence reduced to exhibits. During a recess, Grant's attorney approached. "Mrs. Hale," he said smoothly. "My client would like a word." Lena stiffened. Rhea leaned in. "You don't have to." Lena considered it, then stood. "I do." They met in a quiet hallway. Grant didn't waste time. "You didn't have to do this," he said, voice low. "We could have handled it privately." Lena met his gaze. "You tried to." Grant scoffed. "You're ruining everything." "You ruined it," Lena replied calmly. "I just stopped protecting you." Grant's jaw tightened. "You think this makes you strong?" Lena nodded slowly. "Yes." Something in her certainty unsettled him more than anger ever could. "This isn't over," he said. "I know," Lena replied. "But neither am I." When she walked back into the courtroom, her hands were shaking, but her steps were steady. The weeks that followed were relentless. Depositions. Therapy sessions. Long conversations that forced Lena to confront memories she'd buried to survive. Some days she left feeling empowered. Others, she cried until exhaustion took over. Rhea stayed constant, anchoring her through every rise and fall. One afternoon, Lena sat alone in the hotel cafe, notebook open but untouched. A woman approached hesitantly. "I hope this isn't inappropriate," she said softly. "I just wanted to thank you." Lena looked up. "For what?" "For speaking," the woman replied. "I left something similar 5 years ago. I didn't think anyone would believe me." Lena swallowed. "Did they?" The woman smiled sadly. "Eventually. But it helped to see someone else say it first." After she left, Lena sat there for a long time, letting the weight of it settle. Her phone buzzed. "Rhea, you okay?" Lena typed back, "I think so. Just processing." "Rhea, proud of you." That night, Lena dreamed again, but this time, she wasn't trapped. She was walking forward, the ground solid beneath her feet. As the case progressed, cracks formed in the image Grant and Margaret had tried so hard to preserve. Former employees came forward. Financial inconsistencies surfaced. Stories overlapped, forming patterns no amount of influence could fully erase. The narrative shifted. Lena wasn't unstable. She'd been silenced. One evening, Lena sat with Rhea on the balcony, city lights stretching endlessly below. "I keep thinking about who I was before all of this," Lena said. "Before I learned how to be afraid." Rhea leaned back, looking at the stars. "She's still there. I don't know if I remember how to be her." "You don't have to," Rhea said. "You get to choose who you are now." Lena smiled faintly. "I like that better." Their parents reached out again, this time cautiously, words softened by consequences they could no longer ignore. Lena listened, but she didn't promise anything. Boundaries, she was learning, were not punishments. They were protections. One morning, an envelope arrived addressed to Lena. Inside was a single page. A handwritten note from Grant. "I never meant to lose everything." Lena stared at the words, then folded the paper carefully and placed it back in the envelope. Meaning didn't matter. Only impact. She handed it to Rhea without comment. Rhea glanced at it once, then set it aside. "You don't owe him a response." "I know," Lena said. As the trial date approached, media interest surged again. Lena gave one interview, short, measured, controlled. "I'm not here to destroy anyone," she said calmly. "I'm here to tell the truth." That night, she sat quietly, nerves humming beneath the surface. "What if people stop listening?" she asked. Rhea shrugged. "Then you'll still be free." The day before testimony, Lena stood alone in the hotel room, hands braced against the sink. Her reflection stared back at her, eyes clear, unflinching. She practiced her breathing. In. Out. When Rhea knocked, Lena turned. "I'm ready," she said. Rhea smiled. "I know." Outside, the city buzzed, unaware of the weight of the moment unfolding quietly within its walls. Tomorrow, Lena would speak again. Not because she had to, but because she chose to. And that choice, simple, deliberate, felt like the strongest thing she'd ever done. The courtroom was fuller this time. Rows of people filled the benches, reporters, observers, advocates, faces that had followed the story from a distance and now wanted to witness its conclusion. The air felt heavier, charged with expectation. Lena sat straight, hands folded in her lap. She could feel her heartbeat, steady but strong. Rhea sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders brushed. No words were exchanged. None were needed. When Lena's name was called, the room seemed to tilt for a moment. She stood. Every step toward the witness stand felt deliberate, like reclaiming ground inch by inch. She took her seat, raised her hand, and swore to tell the truth. And then she did. She spoke clearly, calmly. She didn't dramatize or minimize. She told them about isolation that disguised itself as care. About decisions made for her, not with her. About fear that crept in slowly, until it felt like normal life. She spoke about silence, how it was rewarded, how it was expected, how it nearly erased her. Grant stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. Margaret didn't look at all. When the questions ended, Lena stepped down. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt complete. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed and voices called her name. She paused once, turning back. "I'm not brave," she said simply. "I just stopped lying to myself." That clip would be replayed countless times. But for Lena, the most important moment came later. In the quiet. That evening, she and Rhea walked along a tree-lined street near the hotel. The city hummed around them, indifferent and alive. For the first time in a long while, Lena felt like she was part of it again. "What now?" she asked. Rhea smiled. "Now you rest. Heal. Decide what you want next." Lena nodded. "I think I want to help people like me." "You already are," Rhea said. They stopped at a crosswalk, waiting for the light to change. Lena glanced at her sister. "You know, if you hadn't come." Rhea shook her head gently. "You would have found another way." "Maybe," Lena said. "But I'm glad I didn't have to." The light changed. They crossed. Weeks later, the verdicts came down. Accountability. Consequences. Closure, as much as closure ever existed. Lena read the final report quietly, then set it aside. She didn't feel joy. She felt peace. Her phone buzzed with messages, some congratulatory, some grateful, some simply saying thank you for saying what I couldn't. She responded to a few. Not all. She was learning that she didn't owe the world her exhaustion. One evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, Lena sat at a small desk, typing. Words came slowly at first, then faster. She wrote about fear, about silence, about the moment she realized strength didn't mean endurance, it meant choice. When she finished, she closed the laptop and exhaled. Rhea watched from the doorway. "You ready?" Lena nodded. "Yeah." They stepped out onto the balcony, the city lights stretching endlessly before them. Somewhere below, life went on, ordinary, messy, hopeful. Lena leaned against the railing. "I used to think fear was permanent." Rhea smiled softly. "It never is." Lena looked out at the horizon, a small smile forming. The road ahead wasn't perfect, but it was hers. And that made all the difference. As the sisters stood there together, Lena understood something she wished she'd known sooner. The safest person to hurt is only safe when she stands alone. And she never would again. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that silence isn't strength and support can change everything, take a moment to show it. Tap the like button so more people can find stories like this. Subscribe if you believe voices like Lena's deserve to be heard. And in the comments, share where you're watching from or what part of this story stayed with you. Because sometimes, hearing one story is enough to help someone else choose themselves too. Thank you for watching. Until the next story, stay strong. Stay hopeful. Stay inspired.